Receiving notifications is one of the most important things on our smartphones. It can be either under control or a hassle to deal with based on what tools and features offered by the operating system. With that said, in today's video I will compare the notification system of Pixel UI based on Android 16, OneUI 8, and iOS 26 to see which one is the best in 2025, so let's find out. Let's start by setting the scoring system. Each one takes a point per feature. If the same feature exists in 2 or more systems with a difference in quality, performance, or ease of use, I will start ranking them by giving half a point extra to the first place, quarter a point to the second, and no extra points to the third. The first category is to compare the status bar and notifications shade, panel, or center based on which operating system you use. Right off the bat, the Android phones are the only ones that have a status bar. It shows the most recent 3 to 4 app icons that have notifications. To me, the main reason this feature is useful is I don't have all my apps on the home screen, so on iOS sometimes I don't recognize that I have a notification from a specific app by just looking at my phone. But instead, I have to pull down the notification center, which is not needed on Android. But there are 2 differences between Pixel UI and OneUI in this matter. Pixel UI can show up to 4 icons instead of 3, while OneUI is better in giving me the option to customize the status bar look from icons to dot or turn it off entirely if I want to. Each one has its own advantage, so 1 point each. Moving to the notification center, all 3 support notification grouping by app, but only iOS has the option to turn it off, so it comes first with 1.5 points versus 1.25 point for the other 2. Expanding notifications is another great feature that I personally use a lot. It's available on all 3, but I found iOS to be the best as it offers a scrollable window in some cases to see the whole thing, not just a snippet like on Android. So it comes first, followed by the other 2. In contrast, iOS is always the worst when it comes to quick actions. All 3 give me the option to reply to messages, but OneUI and Pixel UI offer more options most of the time, like mark messages as read or send a like. So they come first, with iOS taking the second spot. Smart replies is another powerful feature that saves me some typing by suggesting replies based on the message I received, which is something iOS lacks. So 1 point to the Android phones. The Android phones also have the smart actions, like the ability to open links or copy important info from the notification banners, which is useful if you don't want to open the conversation, so 1 point each. Snoozing notifications is another Android trick that helps you get re-notified later after a specific interval from 15 up to 2 hours. It works the same on the 2 Android phones, so 1 point each. In contrast, iOS is the only one that gives you a quick way to mute certain notifications for 1 hour or for today, so it takes a point. Another great Android feature that iOS lacks for so long is the notifications history. How many times we dismiss some by mistake, and when it happens, this feature gives you a peace of mind. It saves up to 24 hours worth of notifications, so 1 point to the Android phones. If you use multiple devices like me, having the ability to sync notification dismissal across devices saves me from dismissing the same ones on all of them, which is a nice touch. All 3 support this feature, but they differ in the limitations. OneUI comes third as it only works with the calendar and reminder apps. iOS native apps like Messages, Mail, etc. do support the feature, while in third-party apps it's up to the developer to support it or not, so it comes second. And on Pixel UI it works with all notifications regardless the app, so it comes first. Then we have the notification summaries. This is one of the features that iOS had for a while, and recently Pixel phones got it with November Pixel drop, but it's only limited to chatting apps, while it works with all apps on iOS, so it comes first. OneUI, on the other hand, doesn't have this feature yet. It's expected to arrive with OneUI 8.5, but up until then, 1.5 points to iOS, and Pixel UI comes second. Another important aspect to compare is how each OS organizes notifications to draw your attention to the things that matter. That's when prioritization comes into play. All 3 use some sort of logic to show the most important notifications on top. To me, all 3 are about the same in how they order things, but there are 3 main differences between them. First, the flexibility. On iOS and OneUI, you can turn off automatic prioritization and sort everything by time, while Pixel UI doesn't allow this. So 1.5 point to OneUI and iOS, and 1.25 point to Pixel UI. Secondly, only on the Android phones you can prioritize specific conversations. In this case, priority conversations get the edge in 3 main things. They always appear on top even before the ones flagged as high priority by the OS. The contact profile picture appears in the status bar to stand out, and the conversation turns into a bubble notification, but you can turn off the latter if you want to, so they take an extra point. The third difference is in how they visually group notifications. OneUI doesn't visually separate priority notifications, they just appear on top. But under Settings, you get the options to move old notifications, background activities, and minimized notifications to a separate section called More at the bottom of the list, which is a nice touch. In contrast, iOS shows priority notifications in a separate section at the very top, which give them the sense of urgency while anything else appear in the same container. Pixel UI, on the other hand, has two priority sections, one for priority conversations and one for the auto-prioritized notifications, which makes it even better. Then a third section for the default notifications and one more for silent notifications. So in this one, Pixel UI comes first for making things visually easier to deal with, and I will call it a draw between iOS and the OneUI, as each one has its own advantage. One more feature that the Android phones have is the ability to minimize silent notifications and make them appear as a single line in the notification center to minimize scrolling and make them even less distracting, so 1 point each. So in the first category, the win goes to Pixel UI with a total score of 16.5 points, followed by OneUI at 14.75, and iOS comes third with 10.75 points. Before jumping to the next chapter, let me tell you that this kind of videos take me a very long time and effort to make. Things can easily get messy and confusing if I didn't plan and order my tasks the right way, which could lead to rework or missing something really important. I started to use a tool called Akiflow that saves me a lot of time and make things a lot easier to follow. First, I started by adding all the projects I need to work on. As expected, most of them are related to the newly released iPhone 17 Pro Max and the Pixel 10 Pro XL. This step alone frees up my mind and helps me keep track of my progress. Then I list all the tasks and link them to the relevant projects. As a pro tip, the hash sign allows me to link tasks to projects as I create them, which is a lot easier. On a side note, you can link up to 32 services like Gmail, Outlook email, Notion, Slack, and many more under the integrations page. So everything is in one place instead of jumping back and forth between tools. I personally use Gmail and Google Calendar, which I connected to Akiflow. By this, my calendar is on the right, and the tasks I added earlier are on the left, which will allow me to use the time blocking technique by dragging and dropping tasks to my calendar and assign a time block for each one. Additionally, when I mark related emails as important in my Gmail account, they automatically appear in my tasks inbox, so I can also assign time blocks for them. Now I'm on top of everything and know exactly what I need to finish and when by just looking at one screen. Another cool feature in Akiflow is the AI chat. You can use it to edit or reschedule your tasks and calendar events, or automate certain actions like checking the weather or exchange rate and get notified when needed, all by just using natural language as if you are talking to ChatGPT. If you want to try Akiflow right now, use the link in the description or the pinned comment. And now let's get back to the video. The next category is managing alerts. Each OS has multiple tools to help you choose how to get alerted. Starting with the lock screen, iOS offers 3 notification styles: count, stack, or list. So it comes first, followed by OneUI that offers either compact view or list view, so it comes second. On OneUI, it seems at first that it has 3 styles, but the second and third options just turn off the lock screen notifications and only show the app icons or a dot in the status bar. This page does exactly the same as the status bar settings page with the same icons and dot options, so it comes third with 1 point. Pixel UI is the only one that has a toggle to show or hide viewed notifications. For example, if you already checked these notifications in the notifications shade, they won't appear on the lock screen if the toggle is turned off, and vice versa. So it takes a point. On the Android phones, you get a global setting to show or hide silent notifications on the lock screen for all apps, which iOS lacks, so 1 point each. And when it comes to privacy, all 3 give the option to hide notifications content on lock screen when the device is locked. But what bothers me on iOS is it shows the contact names, which is not as private as Android that hides everything. So Pixel UI and OneUI come first, followed by iOS. Additionally, all 3 have the option to hide notifications while screen sharing, which is a nice touch, so 1 point each. Now let's talk about the global notification settings. iOS is the only one that has the notification summary feature. You can select the least important apps and get a summary for all the notifications you received from them at certain times throughout the day, with the ability to create up to 12 summaries, so one point to iOS. Thankfully, the flash alerts or flash notifications feature is now available on all three, but there are some differences. iOS has two advantages: the ability to choose if you want this feature to work when unlocked or when silent mode is activated. OneUI also has two advantages: the ability to choose if you want this feature to work with all apps or selected ones, plus the ability to choose the screen flash color. Pixel UI, on the other hand, is the most basic. The maximum thing you can do is to change the screen flash color. So iOS and OneUI come first, followed by Pixel UI. Moving to the pop-up notifications or banners, OneUI is the only one that gives you the option to change the style. You can make it either detailed or brief, so it takes a point, plus it has the edge lighting effect that lights up the edges of the screen with a total of 7 different styles to choose from, the ability to change the color, transparency, width, and duration, so one more point to OneUI. Let me also talk about the app-specific settings, as I found some differences that are worth noting. Let's take Instagram as an example. On the Android phones, you have the ability to choose the exact type of notifications you want to receive from each app within settings. To do the same on iOS, you have to go to the app settings, which only gives you some on and off toggles. Having them under settings is not only easier, but it gives you the flexibility to use all the system tools to customize the settings for these specific categories, like choosing a custom notification sound and more. So one point to the Android phones. The second difference between them is Pixel UI has the most limited app global settings. But for the settings similar to the other two, you have to go inside each notification category for modifications. iOS is the opposite. It only offers global app settings. OneUI, on the other hand, offers both enough global app settings and per category. So OneUI deserves extra half a point for the convenience. Putting this aside, let's see what we can change on each one. All three give you the option to choose where to show the notifications. On the Android phones, you can show or hide lock screen notifications and notification pop-ups or banners. On iOS, you can do the same in addition to the notification center, so it comes first, followed by the Android phones. All three support toggling the notification badges or dot, so 1 point each. Toggling the sound and the vibration per app is also possible. The Android phones have a toggle for each one, while on iOS you can only toggle the sounds, so 1.5 points to Pixel UI and OneUI, while iOS comes second. In contrast, iOS is the only one that offers persistent notification banners, so it takes a point. On Pixel UI, you get the ability to override Do Not Disturb per notification category, which is not possible on OneUI or iOS, so it takes a point. And the iOS also has a nice trick, which is the time-sensitive notifications toggle. These notifications will be delivered immediately, and later you can set your focus mode to allow all time-sensitive notifications at once, which will make it easier. So 1 point to iOS. In addition to this, there are some extras to compare. All three can set a specific ringtone per contact and a custom notification sound for conversations or text messages. But the difference here is OneUI can also set a custom call vibration per contact. iOS is even better, as it can set a custom vibration for calls and text notifications, not just calls, so it comes first, followed by OneUI, and Pixel UI comes third. OneUI comes with even more exclusive features that the other two lack, like the ability to choose between numbers or dot badges, while on the other two you are limited to either this or that, so it takes a point. The second one is the ability to show app notifications in the shortcuts menu. We used to have this feature in Pixel UI, but Google killed it, so another point to OneUI. The last OneUI exclusive is the repeat notification alerts feature. It allows you to repeat alerts for notifications from specific apps based on a time interval, so one more point to OneUI. On Android, we have what it's called bubble notifications, which iOS lacks. It makes it easier to stay on top of certain conversations and easily reply to them, so 1 point to the Android phones. Lastly, Pixel UI has two exclusive features. The first one is Pixel VIPs. You can choose up to 8 VIP contacts, and the OS will prioritize their notifications, bypass Do Not Disturb, see recent calls and messages in one place, get event reminders, crisis alerts, and more. So it takes a point. The second one is the notification cooldown. It automatically lowers the volume and minimizes alerts of back-to-back notifications for up to 1 minute. This could be useful in situations when you receive multiple scam messages, when someone tries to annoy you, or when you keep your phone off for a while and don't want to be flooded with notifications when you turn it back on, so one more point to Pixel UI. That's it with the Managing Alerts category. The overall win goes to OneUI with a total of 18.5 points, followed by Pixel UI with a score of 16.75, with iOS ranking third with a total of 13.5 points. Before jumping to the next comparison, if you like my wallpapers, the good news is you can get your hands on all of them. If you are an iOS user, they are available for download through my Patreon's page, and for Android, you can download the channel's Wallpapers by In-Depth Tech Reviews app from Google Play Store. All the links are in the description, and now let's get back to the comparison. The third category in this video is to compare iOS focus versus Android modes. Right off the bat, the Android phones made this feature a bit confusing, and here is why. When you open the Do Not Disturb mode on all three, you will find that Pixel UI doesn't give the option to auto-schedule like others, and it has an option to automatically turn off Do Not Disturb after a specific period of time. In contrast, when I create a custom mode, I get the schedule option missing from the Do Not Disturb settings, but I lost the ability to automatically turn off the custom mode that was available under the Do Not Disturb settings. That makes me scratch my head. OneUI is also confusing. Do Not Disturb doesn't have the option to link a wallpaper, and there is a dedicated menu for setting the alarms and sounds. In contrast, under the custom modes, there is an option to link a wallpaper, but it's missing the alarms and sounds menu. When you look at iOS, you will see that all focus modes, including Do Not Disturb, give you the same set of main features. They only differ in the secondary options that are specific to certain modes like gaming and driving. And because of this, I believe iOS deserves a point for being more consistent and a lot easier to deal with. Now let's compare the features. All three allow you to choose the people who can interrupt. But from my experience, iOS and Pixel UI have some limitations that make it hard to cover all scenarios. Starting with iOS, you can allow calls from certain groups like favorites, contacts, etc. But for messages, you have to choose people manually, which takes a long time. Pixel UI is better in allowing predefined groups for calls and messages, not just calls like iOS, but it lacks the ability to choose certain people, which is needed in case you want to add specific people outside these groups. In contrast, OneUI gives the best of both worlds. You get the ability to choose certain people or a certain group for calls and messages separately, so it comes first, followed by Pixel UI and iOS, as each one has its own limitation. Looking at the rest of the settings, you will see that all three support the repeat callers toggle, which is nice. But there are some differences. OneUI and iOS have the option to flip the rule. You can either allow the selected contacts or allow all except the selected contacts, and this option is also available under other pages, so 1 point to iOS and OneUI. On the other hand, Pixel UI is the only one that has the option to select multiple lists under messages, so for example, you can allow start contacts and priority conversations at the same time, so it takes a point. Moving to apps, on iOS and OneUI you can allow apps to interrupt as a whole, while Pixel UI gives you the option to select either all notifications or specific types, which is a nice touch. So it comes first with 1.5 points, followed by OneUI and the iOS that come second. The Android phones have a separate menu for controlling system sounds like alarms, media, touch sounds, reminders, and calendar events. The main difference between the two is Pixel UI has it under all modes, while it's only available under Do Not Disturb on OneUI. So the Pixel comes first, followed by OneUI and 0 points to iOS. Then comes the scheduling. In this matter, Pixel UI is the worst. It can only set a schedule based on a time period or calendar events. iOS offers more options like time, location, app, or smart activation based on what it learns about you over time. Lastly, OneUI comes first as it covers what iOS has, in addition to a huge number of other scheduling options and actions that can trigger the mode. You can also schedule the modes to automatically turn off, and in this one, iOS comes first as it offers more options either based on a specific duration, location, or calendar event. OneUI and Pixel UI offer the same auto turn off feature only based on a specific duration, but OneUI has the edge for allowing this in all modes, while it's only available for Do Not Disturb on the Pixel, so OneUI comes second, and the third spot goes to the Pixel. Back to iOS, there is a feature called App Filters. It gives the option to choose what to show in 6 different apps. For example, in Mail you can show only the mailboxes you want, and in the Phone app you can filter calls by SIM if you have multiple ones, and so on. So it takes a point. On the other hand, OneUI has a feature called Restrict App Usage. You can choose specific apps to keep active and disable anything else. Pixel UI has a feature called Focus that does exactly the same, so 1 point each. Now let's compare the appearance features. You can set each mode to modify some of the display settings to make things less distracting. I found iOS to be the most limited here. It only gives 3 things: disable always on display, enable dark mode, and dim the lock screen wallpaper. Pixel UI comes second for offering the same features as iOS in addition to the grayscale. And OneUI comes on top for offering a lot more options than both of them under the display menu. Moving to the display options for notifications, both OneUI and the Pixel UI offer exactly the same options, but Pixel UI has the edge for having this menu under all modes, while on OneUI it's only available for the Do Not Disturb mode. In contrast, iOS offers limited options which are show on lock screen and hide notification badges, so it comes third. On top of this, OneUI and iOS allow you to adjust some system settings. On iOS, they are limited to low power mode and silent mode, while OneUI offers almost all the system settings you can think of, so it comes first, followed by iOS, and 0 points to Pixel UI. Linking a wallpaper to each mode is only possible on OneUI and iOS. iOS has the edge in working both ways. For example, activating the mode changes the wallpaper, and changing the wallpaper activates the mode if you want to. While on OneUI, it only changes the wallpaper when you activate the mode, but you get the flexibility to choose 2 separate wallpapers for the home and lock screen, so I will call it a draw as each one has its own advantage. iOS has 4 more exclusive features. First, it's the only one that allows you to show specific home screen pages per mode. It supports focus mode sharing in native apps like Messages, so your contacts can see your status. It can be shared across devices, so you can enable it once for all of them. And finally, the intelligent breakthrough and silencing feature that uses AI to allow certain notifications based on their priorities. So in the third category, the overall win goes to iOS with a total of 17.5 points, followed by OneUI with 15 points, and Pixel UI comes last with 12 points. The last thing I want to talk about is the live activities or live notifications. All 3 now support the feature and it works pretty much the same way, but because Apple did it first, it has broader app support unlike the limited choices on Android. OneUI comes second as it supports more apps when compared to Pixel UI that comes last. And now let's sum up the numbers. In the notification shade and the status bar comparison, the win goes to Pixel UI with a total of 16.5 points. The second best is OneUI with 14.75, and iOS comes last with 10.75 points. In the managing alerts category, the win goes to OneUI with a total of 18.5 points, followed by Pixel UI at 16.75, and iOS comes third with 13.5 points. In the focus/modes comparison, iOS comes first with a total of 17.5 points, followed by OneUI with 15 points, and Pixel UI comes last with 12 points. And lastly, in live activities or live notifications, iOS delivers the best experience, followed by OneUI, and the Pixel UI comes last. By this, I'm done with the comparison, and now you have a clear idea which one is better in what. And the best notification system is the one that works the best for you. So please let me know in the comments what do you think. But for now, thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video.